So, welcome to day 5, talking about our series that I've been doing. I just want to start off with talking about, I think, the largest misconception around this trending topic of the nervous system, which is that, and I hear clients say it all the time, well, I'm trying to stay regulated. I'm trying to stay regulated. And I think that the confusion is around calm equals regulated. No, ma'am, that's not true. That's not what we're doing here. Um, and I think that that piece has created a lot of confusion, not just in people, but in the horse world when we're dealing with our horses. Because most people think, like I said, being regulated means you're calm, you don't get triggered, you don't have big feelings, and you don't react, you stay calm, you stay quiet, and you're steady all the time. Uh, and that's just not regulation. That is pretty much suppression, shut down, self-control at the expense of your truth, or a system that has learned how to look okay on the outside while something is very different inside, and the feelings that you're having underneath is just not the same. It's not aligned. So, real regulation is not about never leaving baseline. It's about being able to move out of baseline, calm, cool, collected, and then coming back. It's about being able to feel anger, sadness, fear, frustration, excitement, grief, joy, and not about being trapped there. It's about flexibility. It's about returning back to yourself so that you can kind of reset. And if you don't understand that, you will misunderstand yourself and misunderstand your horse because your nervous system and your horse's nervous system are both constantly asking the same question. Am I safe enough to stay present right now? Stay in my body, stay where I am. And if the answer is yes, you have access to curiosity, learning, softness, connection, expression, adaptability. If the answer is no, the system will shift into protection. That protection is what people call trauma responses. And when I say trauma response, I do not mean something huge and dramatic. I mean the ways the system has learned to adapt when something else feels like it's too much, too fast, too unclear, too threatening, too emotionally loaded, too overwhelming to process in that moment. And those responses are not random. They are intelligent, they are protective, but they are also patterns. And if you don't recognize them, you start building your life, your relationships, and your work with your horse based on those survival responses instead of from regulation. So I want to walk you through each one in a deeper way, not just naming them, but actually talking about what they look like in a person, what they look like in a horse, and why they get misread, and what to do about it. A lot of people are trying to fix behavior when they really need to do is just understand the state. Behavior is like the output. State, where you're at, is the driver of that. So I'd like to start there. So in the series, if you missed it, we started with fawn. Okay, fawn is what happens when the nervous system decides that the safest thing to do is to stay connected by abandoning truth. And this is the response that says, if I go along with this, if I keep the peace, if I get it right, if I don't make this harder, maybe I stay safe. In a person, this can look like saying yes when it is not a real yes. It can look like over explaining, it can look like over accommodating, overthinking, and something will land. Trying to make sure everybody is okay before you allow yourself to be okay. It can look like people pleasing, conflict avoidance, smoothing things over, needing to be understood, struggling to disappoint people, losing your own signal because your attention is always on the other person's response. How do they feel about this? How is this going? A lot of people fawn, they don't even realize that it's happening because on the outside, it just looks very functional. It looks kind, it looks agreeable, it looks easy, it looks nice, it looks cooperative, low maintenance, as us girls like to say. But underneath it, there is usually tension. There is self-abandonment. There is a quiet override that of what is actually true. And now we look at the horse version of this. This is the horse that really looks like it's good behavior or really broke, as people will say. And this is the horse that does the thing. The horse that gives the answer, the horse that is compliant, the horse that goes along, the horse that looks broke, the horse that looks easy, well trained. And but if you slow down and you really look, something is often missing. There may be no curiosity, no true expression, no opinion, no like spark, no real participation. It's almost like they're checked out and they look a little bit like zombie-ish. They are doing the thing, but they are not in relationship whatsoever. They have learned that the safest place to manage pressure is just to comply. And this is where so many people get confused because they think that if the horse is not resisting, then the horse must understand, must be soft, must be regulated, and just must be okay. So this is not necessarily true. Sometimes the horse is not okay enough to say no. This is very against traditional horsemanship. And there's a million different ways that this will get argued. But this is very different. And it's very different from them understanding and being in partnership with you. And this matters physically for a reason, because when a horse is in a fawn response, they often are not expressing, so they are bracing. They contain. They organize around compliance instead of around freedom of movement, adaptive movement, um, just expression in general. So you may see tightness in the jaw, the poll, the ribs, the back. You may see a horse who technically does the thing, but moves like without like aliveness. You may see reduced impulsion, restricted movement, repetitive patterns, compensation, and eventually physical breakdown. Not because the horse is weak, but because the horse is organizing around survival instead of true understanding. So, what do you do with the fawn response? Well, in yourself, start noticing where your yes is not real. You notice where you are whoa, smoothing, managing, appeasing, over explaining, saying the right thing instead of the true thing. And you don't try to become wildly confrontational overnight because that is not the point. You build your capacity to tolerate truth in relationship to friends, to work, to your partner, whatever. In your horse, you stop mistaking compliance for connection. So you just get curious about expression. You look for signs of participation and not just performance, but you're asking whether the horse is actually with you or whether the horse has learned that the safest thing to do is go blank and just do the thing. And what I notice most often in those situations where you might notice it too is when you go to halter your horse, when you go to bridle your horse, when you go to brush your horse, when you go to do these transitional things, like into the next segment. What do they say? And you can look for the body language. What are they saying in their body language? It can be so small, especially if they're in a fawn response. So you lift the halter to their head and they tip it a little bit away from you, or they rock back. You go to put the bridle on, same thing. They move their face away. There's other reasons why this can happen, but I'm just saying, get curious. You go to put the saddle on, you notice that their eyes kind of get big, their head goes up, they tighten their body, they don't necessarily move away. Those are some of the signs you can see. And what I would invite you to do in that moment is stop where you see the brace, the eyes, the slight tilt away and just back off, rock back. You don't have to retreat completely and go throw the halter down on the ground and put the saddle away, but just what does it feel like to rock back and relieve that pressure a little bit and go, oh, I saw that. It is wild how people will say, if you do that, you're releasing pressure and you will teach the horse that that's what it should do. But I promise you, if your horse is in any state of these survival places, they're not actually learning. So you don't have to worry about that. That can be debunked. Um, What you are saying is, I saw that. I will slow down. What do you need? You get curious first. But if you are operating in a state of fun, most of my clients have that is mostly what's running, the people pleasing, the overextending yourself in the name of selflessness, not wanting to be selfish, etc. You won't necessarily notice these things as problematic. But if you're talking about the end result and why it matters is, well, if you have any care of having a relationship with your horse, it matters. But if for you, for those of you that are like, well, everything's working, why do I care if they're fawning? Because their body will break down eventually. And I mean, most of the people that follow me care about the well-being of their animals. If you don't, you're probably shouldn't even be watching this video. So we'll just move on. So freeze is what happens when the system gets overwhelmed and does not have a clear or safe way forward. This is not low effort. Okay, we'll hear this in a lot of different ways. This is low access. So the system reduces energy because it does not know how to proceed and does not feel safe to actually mobilize and move. So in a person, it can look like you're just stuck. So people will explain, I'm just stuck. You know that there's something you need to do, but you cannot. You know what matters, but you cannot access it. You sit in front of the decision, you think about it, you circle it, you feel heavy, blank, numb, disconnected, tired, or just like paralyzed. Sometimes you scroll, sometimes you distract, sometimes you check out completely, sometimes you stare at the thing and nothing is happening. This is not laziness. Please stop gaslighting yourself and making yourself feel like shit about it. This is the nervous system that is dropped into like conservation mode. In horses, freeze is what gets mislabeled as lazy, dull, stubborn, behind the leg, unmotivated, dead-sided, unwilling, whatever. The horse hesitates because moving forward feels unavailable. The energy drops, transitions feel like delayed. You feel like you have to keep asking, you keep addressing the pressure, getting less and less back, and then people conclude that the horse just does not care. So that's not usually what's happening. What is often happening is that the system is overwhelmed and no longer has access to adaptive movement, dynamic movement. And that really ties into if they feel safe or not. Um, this is where pressure, this is where pressure does not help. Pressure requires capacity. So if the system is already below access, more pressure can deepen the shutdown and not actually create clarity at all. So what do you do with freeze? Well, in yourself, you stop demanding the full thing. Okay. So in a freeze response, and this is huge, the worst thing you can do is ask your system to take a giant leap forward and then shame yourself for not doing it, not finishing the project, um, and and not getting the thing done. Okay. So you break it down into a smaller task, 5% even. And just what can you do that moves you closer to it? And then celebrate that. And then say, I finished that. Write it down on a notepad, check it off because those little check marks, dopamine, you love it. Huh? So instead of, I need to solve this, think I need to stand up and move my body first, and maybe an idea will come. Um, I need to go ride my horse, overwhelming. I need to go out, touch the halter and say hi. Start there, see how you feel after. I need to have this full, really hard conversation, starting with, I need to say one honest sentence to myself multiple times until I feel the truth in it, and then maybe bring it to the person. So that matters because your system needs safety to scale. In your horse, you stop interpreting low access as character flaw. You reduce the ask. You look for tiny signs of them coming back to you. You stop building on shutdown and you ask for what would help the horse come back online rather than how to make the horse do more from this state. So, what I have people look for is a tiny moment of expression. And usually, what we have to do is create a container that's safe first. Ask for a little bit of playfulness, movement, something different out of the ordinary. Add poles, bring a ball out. You run around like a wild person in the arena. Do something that is so out of pocket that you normally do with your horse on a regular basis. And start to add play in, break the routine, and look for any moments of them thawing out and coming back online. So, functional freeze. Functional freeze is where a lot of people live and do not even know it. This is like a mixed state. This is where when part of the system is still overwhelmed, but another part is mobilizing enough to keep you going forward. So on the outside, it does not look like freeze. It looks like life. It looks like activity. It looks like productivity. Uh, but underneath it, there is no real traction per se, and usually it results in burnout. So in a person, functional freeze looks like researching, organizing, planning, learning, preparing, making lists, talking about it, circling it, staying busy, starting things, not finishing things, feeling productive and stuck at the same time. And this is why so many people say, I'm doing so much. Why is nothing changing? Because there is movement, but not direction. There is activity and not embodiment. There is mental motion, but not regulated forward movement. The system is active enough to avoid like full shutdown, but not safe enough for clear, grounded action that's actually moving you towards the thing. This is such an important one because it gets rewarded. It looks better than freeze. It sounds better than a freeze. It feels better than freeze because at least you are doing something. But you are often still trapped in that state of survival. In horses, functional freeze is the horse that is like moving. It's working, it's doing the pattern, it's going through the motions, but it feels robotic. It feels rehearsed. It feels repetitive. It feels like you're having the same ride over and over and over again. Timing may be slightly off. Connection may feel like thin, for a better lack of a better word. The horse may look like it's fine to many people, but nothing is actually developing. So this is a horse that is busy, but like not available. This is a horse that has movement, but not necessarily engagement. And because the horse is moving, people think the horse is okay. So, not necessarily. Sometimes the horse is functioning around that tension, but not through regulation. So, what I'll find is people will have horses that spook out of nowhere or just will anticipate what you're asking before you ask. So, what do you do with that functional freeze? Well, in yourself, you start asking like harder questions. Am I moving or am I circling? Like filling up that space with busy work. Am I getting closer or am I avoiding stillness through activity? Because stillness sometimes can bring the feelings. What is the one thing I know that matters that I keep not doing? That's a rough one. Then you think, bring it back to the body. Choose one clear step. You stop letting busy count as progress when it is not. In your horse, you stop being impressed by motion alone. You look for like genuine connection, variability. Same as with freeze. Like invite that dynamic movement, add a ball, some toys, do something completely different to break that pattern up for them and find access back to themselves and how they actually feel. So next we have flight. Uh, Flight is a response that people will often mistake as like drive, ambition, forwardness, sensitivity, lots of energy. Now, sometimes those things are genuinely a part of a person's temperament or a horse's wiring, but flight is different. Flight is activation without regulation. So it's a system saying, I do not feel safe, so I need to move. In a person, this can look like overworking, overthinking, feeling every second, needing to stay busy, trouble slowing down, anxiety when things get quiet, thinking about what is next, trying to get ahead of the feeling by staying in motion. Um, a lot of high functioning people live here and they call it so productivity. A lot of successful people live here and they call it work ethic. A lot of people in the horse world live here and call it dedication. But if you cannot stop without discomfort, that's actually what matters. Uh, if slowing down makes you feel more agitated, that matters. Yeah, if the only reason you feel like it's okay is because you are in motion, that matters. In horses, flight looks like the fast one, the reactive one, the sensitive one, the forward one, the hot one, the one that rushes, the one that braces, the one that cannot settle into like a rhythm, the one that is always just a little ahead, and the one that reacts before they actually process what's going on. People will often see that and think the horse just needs more control, more holding together, more containment. Sometimes what the horse actually needs is more regulation, more clarity, more safety, less escalation layered on top of escalation, because flight is not clarity, it's activation. So, what do you do with flight? Well, in yourself, you do not start with the mind, you start with the body. You lengthen your exhale, you reduce stimulation, you create less input, you do fewer things, not more. You stop demanding that your nervous system perform calmness instead of giving it real conditions for like actually settling down. So in your horse, do not try to dominate the energy into stillness. You help the horse find safety and rhythm, clarity, pacing, and like return back to this present moment. So you stop rewarding the idea that more pressure will somehow produce more regulation in a system that is like already activated. So that does put a little twist on what actually happens in our horsemanship land, where everything is contained, put, control, drive, and what it does require is you to slow down and not be in that place and not judge that place. A lot of people get anxious. This is the most important part for most horses. And the reason my sessions are almost never just an hour is because there is so much time spent in stillness, in between things, letting them regulate and process. And most of the time, once the person realizes what's happening, they are into it. For someone that doesn't understand what's actually going on in those moments and how impactful they are, it makes them very uncomfortable and antsy. So, doing the work first for yourself is really where you need to go. And I think a lot of people avoid it because it's uncomfortable, especially if those of you are in like go, go, go. Because when you slow down, what happens? Oh, the feelings start to happen and the things that we've been avoiding. And so, yeah, the discomfort basically. All right, let's move to fight. Fight is the response people probably judge the most. It's like the pushback, the frustration, the irritation, the no. Oh, the no, how offensive. The boundary, the force that says like this is not okay. And because so many people are uncomfortable with anger, directness, resistance, fight gets labeled as bad almost immediately. In a person, this can look like snapping, defensiveness, frustration, sharpness, intensity, reactivity, quick anger, pushing back, getting loud, being direct, feeling the heat in the body, and feeling the urge to protect, defend, and confront. Um, so there is nuance here that definitely matters. Not all fight is dysregulated. Oh my God, what? Some fight is a system overwhelmed and reactive. Some fight is a person finally coming out of fawn and finding access to know, which sometimes comes out a little over the top. The two are not the same, though. And if you collapse them together, you miss a really important developmental step. For a lot of people, especially people who have spent years in fawn, the first version of truth does not usually come out very polished. It comes out hot, comes out a little messy, sometimes a bit spicy. Comes out late. It comes out sharper than they probably mean. That does not mean it has always gone wrong. Okay. Sometimes it means the system is finally allowing energy it's used or it used to suppress to use it. In horses fight can look like ear pinning, tail swishing, pushing into pressure, kicking out, biting, striking, refusing, explosive energy, attitude. Again, sometimes that is just overwhelm. Sometimes it is pain. Sometimes it is confusion. Sometimes it is a very clear no. Sometimes it is a boundary. Sometimes it is a horse finally saying something after a very long period of time of suppression. And this is why the context matters. What you do with that fight, in yourself, you stop making the existence of your anger or pushback wrong. You slow down long enough to ask, is this reactivity, boundary, pain, overwhelm, or truth? Then you work on expression with regulation, not suppression. This is so important because honestly, mostly women have been taught that being polite, shrinking down, becoming adaptable, and molding yourself into whatever the world needs, whether it's your children, your boss, your partner, your friends. The easygoing one is the one everyone wants to accept and love. And we're done with that. It's it's okay to be annoyed. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to have all of these sensations moving through your body. Without judgment, they are just sensations. So slowing down and asking, what is underneath this that I am not saying or doing? Go there. Okay? There's lots of truth in the anger. So let's stop judging it and making it wrong. We don't need to attack people, but asking the question, getting curious, and then creating whatever needs to be created with the energy that's coming up for you. Super important. So, in your horse, stop shutting down every protest as disrespect. You get curious. Is this pain? Is this confusion? Is this too much? Is the horse saying no because something is really not okay? Do not romanticize this, okay? And do not demonize it either. Just read it. So, what do you actually do with all of this? This is where people usually want the list. But if I give you a bunch of disconnected tips without this framework, you will use them as techniques instead of as a way of understanding the system. So here's the actual work. Your horse is allowed to have a boundary just as much as you are. Um, they can express themselves as long as it doesn't harm you, and you can express yourself as long as it doesn't harm them. So first we want to stop focusing on the behavior before state. Before you ask what the behavior is, ask what the state the system is in. Second, stop asking giant questions of the system that is already overwhelmed. Make the ask smaller. Third, work with the body first, not because mindset is useless, but because usually state lives in the body before the mind makes up a story about it. Fourth, stop overriding survival responses and then calling them resistance. Okay? Pushing through overwhelm is not always strength. Sometimes it is just rehearsal for more survival. So, fifth, stop aiming for never reacting. Aim for noticing it faster and returning back to the present moment sooner. Okay. Regulation is not calm. Calm can be regulation, but it's not always. Calm can also be shut down. So, calm can be grounding. Calm can also be suppression. So the goal, we're deleting that from our minds. The goal is not to be calm all the time. The goal is to be able to move through a full range of emotion, activation, expression, and experience, and then return to the present moment and get curious about what is this? What am I experiencing right now? What do I need to know? Don't judge it. Get curious. This is what creates resilience. This is what creates true flexibility. This is what creates actual safety in the body. And this matters so much with horses because a horse expressing emotion is not automatically dysregulated. Okay? I know it feels better to have a horse that's calm and steady all the time, but you know what? Someone probably told you that you were easier to digest, calm and steady all the time. So we're not going to do that anymore. Okay? Sometimes a horse is more honest, more available, and more in the nervous system than the horse who has gone quiet. We have been taught that associate quiet with good, and expression with like a problem to be fixed. Okay, that's wild. That has created a lot of confusion for us as humans in general and in the horse world. Because sometimes the quiet horse is just shut down. Sometimes the expressive horse is actually in the process of returning communication or staying available enough to tell you the truth of what is going on for them. So, what do you do now? You just start asking better questions in these moments. Not how do I make this stop in them or you, but what state is this coming from in this current moment? Okay. Not asking the question, how do I get the horse to do the thing? Instead, what would help the horse come back online, on back to this present moment, coming back to like what's actually going on? Not asking the question, what's wrong with me? But asking the question, what would make this feel safe enough for the next step for me? Because what you do to yourself, you will do to your horse. Wow. If you push yourself through overwhelm, you will push them through overwhelm, and you won't even see it happening. If you ignore your own signals, you will ignore theirs. If you confuse silence with regulation, you will do the same thing to your horse. So, no, you do not need to become someone who never reacts. You need to become someone who can recognize the state, work with the body, respect the signal, and come back. Here I am. Sorry about that. Let me get curious about why I had that reaction and try to respond from a place of truth and authenticity. Okay, that's the work. That is regulation, and that is capacity. And if you're listening to this and realizing you do not just want to understand, you want support actually applying it, then I'm opening up 2 one-on-one spots. This is a beta container, and it's for April. So if I've been building an offering and I just want to test it out on a couple people. So if that's something you're feeling really interested in, reach out to me. Send me a comment, send me a message, reply to this email if this is where you got it, and let's do some work together. All right. Thank you guys. If you have any questions, comments, please drop them below and I will get back and I will respond and we will just keep going deeper.